Brian, thank you. And I want to go now to Jim Bianco, longtime Fed watcher, president of Bianco Research, Investment Analysis, one of the most well-known followers of the markets and the bond market. So, Jim, let's just, I guess, get to the heart of this. You think the optics here, putting aside what Trump is doing, but the optics here don't look good for Powell. How come?
Yeah, well, there's two things about the Fed that has kind of set this up, maybe not for Trump per se, but for somebody. One, the Fed chairman pretty much decides monetary policy. And I like to compare him to the Supreme Court Chief Justice Roberts. He doesn't decide how they're going to vote. He's one of 9 votes. In theory, the Fed chairman should be one of 12 votes, but he really isn't. So he gives him oversized power. So there's one person you could focus on if you don't like Fed policy as opposed to 12. The other optics problem is the Fed cut rates last year in September by 50 basis points. That was, they started cutting rates right after Labor Day before an election. They've never done that before. It turns out in hindsight, that was probably not necessary. Now, I could argue that that was a justifiable move. It just didn't work out the way it did. But the Fed's communication has always been kind of poor, and they haven't really explained it well. So if a Republican wants to stand up and say, look, you did that to goose the economy to try and prevent Donald Trump from winning, you could argue, well, if they were actually doing that, that's exactly what they would have done. And they don't do a good job of explaining why they did it in the first place.
So, all right, so those optics obviously aren't great. But then you sit here and you have Trump coming out and calling Powell all sorts of things. He's called him stupid, knucklehead, all those things, right? Personal and pejorative. The independence of the Fed chair is something, of course, that should be sacred in this country. So Trump says he met with Republicans last night who supported and, in fact, were enthusiastic, saying, fire Powell, fire Powell. But then today, the Republican Senator John Kennedy spoke out, and he had a warning for Trump about firing Powell. I want to play it for you, Jim.
If you fire the chairman of the Federal Reserve, you will see the stock market crash, and you will see the bond market crash.
What could happen?
That is a possibility that you could see those happen. But the reality is, I mean, I'm just trying to think this through. If he was to fire Powell and Powell were to leave and not stay and try and fight it in court, which he probably would do. But if he left, Philip Jefferson would probably take over as the Federal Reserve chairman, and because he's the vice chairman, and nothing would really change because the other 11 voters would probably continue with this policy of not cutting rates. And I think that would temper the market. But at the end of the day, you would create chaos with the Fed, you would reduce its independence, and you would not get what you would want in the long run, and that would be a cutting of rates. And you would weaken the institution, and you would worry markets that we've got a loss of confidence, and you'd hurt the dollar. So it would definitely. Now, whether or not I'd go as far as to say the word crash, well, maybe that's a semantical thing, but it wouldn't be good, and you wouldn't want to see it happen in the first place.
All right, well, let's hope it doesn't happen. Jim, thank you very much, as always. And next, Putin taking advantage of Trump.